let's talk about the Suns and KD. So right now the Suns are in fourth place. They are currently 3 games behind the Kings, 4 games behind in the loss column. KD came back yesterday, made his debut, and the Suns defeated the Charlotte Hornets. So what are your thoughts on not only KD's first game, but kind of the Suns' outlook for the rest of the season? Right? Where do you think they'll finish seeding wise, assuming health? Because right now they're
Mhm.
fourth. They're somewhat within striking distance of third. I think they're too far out of for second place right now, but they're still close enough to the rest of the pack, like the Warriors and Clippers, where they could fall back as well. So where do you think they'll what did you think of KD's first game, and where do you think that the Suns will finish in terms of the standings?
I think so far KD has fit well. I mean, it's hard to say. They beat the Hornets, one of the worst teams in the league. So they didn't really need the team. They didn't even need to click too much to beat a team like the Hornets. But I honestly think they'll actually, in my opinion, they're going to surpass the Kings to get the third seed. Just because they're a far more experienced team. I feel like the team is rejuvenated. They're playing with more urgency and they're excited to have KD. I think having an addition of a player, someone of a KD's caliber will rejuvenate a team, and I think the team will play with a lot more, like lift the spirits moving forward. They're going to feel motivated to play extremely well, as opposed to listening to all the chatter prior to the KD trade, where it's like, oh, are the Suns anymore? Are they going to be good? Are they contenders? I think getting KD kind of silenced those critics, at least for now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think they'll start playing a lot better. Again, I think for the Kings, they're playing really well this year. The chemistry is definitely there, but I just don't think they're better than the Suns. I mean, I think the Suns are close enough. Like they're only 3 games behind. So I do think the Suns will end up being third seed, and the Kings would be fourth.
Yeah. So
That's my thought.
So my thought process with the Sun. Okay, so let's start with the seedings.
Mhm.
So I am tentatively agreeing with you that I think the Suns will catch the Kings for 2 reasons. As you mentioned, they're only 3 games back, 4 games back in the loss column, but the Suns actually played the Kings 2 more times this season, right? So, and I think we all agree that, or most people would agree that the Suns are superior than the Kings when
With
healthy.
KD, yeah,
Right.
for sure.
So I'm just gonna go off on the assumption that the Suns will just win those 2 games. So it's basically just a 2 game delta that the Suns have to make up on the Kings for the rest of the season. In my opinion, I think the Suns will be able to do that. Right. Now, if the Suns lose either of those games to the Kings, then my opinion changes. But I'm assuming that with 2 games remaining against the Kings, the Suns will beat them. So they only have to make up a 2 game difference, and they should be able to do that with 19 games left in the season. So in terms of seeding, I agree with you. They should get to 3. Um, in terms of how Katie looked fine.
Yep. I mean,
Granted, it was against the Hornets without their 3 best players, but looked fine. Um, the only concern that I really have against the Suns, and it's kind of similar to what my concerns were with the Clippers, but a little different. I think the starters for the Suns, I think they will figure it out fairly quickly, right? Because Chris Paul, Booker, Aiden, they play here for 3 years, and a lot of the offensive sets that the Suns run, it's mostly just they run stuff at the elbow a lot, right? A lot of mid range, a lot of dribble handoffs, a lot of pick and roll, and a lot of ISOs at the elbow, which KD
can do a
has
lot
done throughout
his
his
entire
entire
career.
career. Right.
Exactly.
So I think the starters will figure it out fairly quickly. My only concern with the Suns, and I think this is more of a concern in the playoffs, not really in the regular season, is what rotations will they have, right?
Yeah.
Because yesterday, what Monty Williams did was in the second and fourth quarters, in the beginning of the second and fourth quarters, he played KD with second unit players the entire time. right? So one of the entire time for the majority of the time. Is that a rotation that he's gonna continue on, or is he gonna mix and match? Right? Is he gonna play KD and Chris Paul while Book is like resting with bench players? Is he gonna switch it up and have Booker be the lone star out there while KD and Chris Paul are on the bench? The rotations are what I am concerned about. If they had 40, 50 games left, then it's not a big concern. But with only for the Suns, they only have 19 games left. And that's assuming that all the stars stay healthy. So that's only my concern. That it's a minor concern. And again, this is not a concern in the regular season. It's probably not even a concern in the first round of playoffs. It's more so towards deeper into playoffs, right? So that's my only concern with the Suns. But overall, like to your point, I think they'll catch Kings. I think they'll be relatively fine.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, and when you have a guy like KD who's can play off ball, I mean, I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, right? But they're not. I mean, he's not going to always play off ball. I mean, he's too good. But but in certain scenarios, when Booker is getting double teamed, or Aiden might get double teamed, easy guy to throw off to who probably hit his wide open shot. So if they choose to play the team that way, but he's had experience playing with other stars before. His pretty much his entire career now that I think about it. So I just thought about it. I was like, OKC, he had Harden, Russell Westbrook, and then Warriors with Steph, Clay, and Draymond. And then even with the Nets, Kyrie when he was available, and Harden again with in Brooklyn. And then now he has Booker and Paul, who's kind of a shell of himself. I think he's definitely regressing, but I think he'll fit in just fine. I think my biggest issue with the Suns is primarily, as you mentioned, their rotations and their depth.
Yeah.
They really don't have anyone of note. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some guys who play who are okay. Like someone like Torrey Craig is a decent defender. Bismack Biyombo is okay as a backup. Damian Lee is good, okay. Josh Okogie defensively is okay. Oh, they also added Terrence Ross. I just realized that. Um,
Yeah, they add Terrence Ross and the buyout, but
helps their
again, like
offense, but not
again, like to your point, they have like 6 or 7 high quality rotation players slash
Cam,
backup players, right?
campaign. Yeah,
But then it depends on how Monty Williams decides to utilize these players and what rotations he wants. Right? In my opinion, 19 games is not enough. But again, this is not a regular season problem for them. It's more so in the playoffs. Is like when you are down 10 in early in the fourth quarter, and you can't play all your stars because they have to rest and for the remaining 6, 7, 8 minutes of the fourth quarter. What guys fit with whether it's KD or Booker fit with your star players in those 3 or 4 minutes where your starters are resting and you can only have a couple starters out there, right? So it's just those questions that I have, right? Because just to we can actually do a segue to the Warriors as well. The Warriors in their mid 2010s, right? Their rotations were pretty consistent. So Steph plays the entire first quarter and the entire third quarter, right? And then Clay would sub out midway through the first and midway through the third. And depending on what the Warriors needed, if they needed more offense, they would go with Barbosa to sub Clay. If they needed more defense, they would sub in Livingston, right? And then when Steph subbed out at the beginning of the second, beginning of the fourth, Clay was subbed back in. Also, at the 9-minute mark, sorry, at the 3-minute mark of the first quarter and the third quarter, Draymond was subbed out, but he was sub in Iguodala, right? So you still have a
right.
playmaking forward who can also defend. So the Warriors had a very consistent rotations, right? So they knew what their rotations were, and they can counter based on if they needed more defense or the
Right.
offense.
But
The Suns the Suns don't have that right now.
the
And to be
team,
quite frank, like even the Clippers to an extent don't have that right now. Right.
right
So
now, I
that's
mean,
one concern.
you're right, but at the same time, the Warriors are a more well ran organization and just team in general. Like they know what they're doing,
Yeah.
so they just have the personnel to slot into those roles as you mentioned. I
Yeah,
actually didn't even realize that during that time. It's crazy to think that was almost 10 years ago.
yeah,
The
it's
first
been the
the
first.
championship in 2015. So I'm like, God,
Yeah, yeah.